Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to a new mock draft. As you can see, we're actually on a different simulator this time. The other one got greedy and started making me pay for stuff that I wanted to do, and I didn't like that. So we switched to this one, which I actually think is better, honestly. I think it's a better platform. The players that I enjoy a lot are actually ranked a lot higher on this platform overall, which is nice, and it will allow me to do trades, which is the big thing. Because I think there's going to be at least one trade in this video. I don't know about more than that, but we'll see what we decide to do down the line. Unlike last video, I haven't really scripted this a whole lot. I ran through one mock draft, and I'm just going to do it again. It'll probably change a little bit from what I did last night when I did that. So, I mean, the best thing about the draft to me is nothing that you think will happen will actually end up happening. It is just a prediction, and the predictions are always wildly wrong. So, who knows? It's just fun to run through scenarios and stuff. A lot of times you'll do this, and I'll be thinking, like, there's no chance in hell that, like, X player drops. I think last time it was Lucas Van Ness. It's like, there's no chance that this guy drops, but every single year somebody drops, like, way farther than they should, and everybody is like, damn, how'd he drop? And, like, if that happened in a mock draft, people would be coming for their heads. So, take that with a grain of salt. Also, my camera angle's kind of fucked up. It really emphasizes my fat fucking forehead. I got a new TV that's much bigger, and I put my camera on top of the TV. I always have, and it's not doing me any favors, so I apologize for that. So we're just going to start at number 1. I'm not going to talk as much about each pick, because last time it was 40 minutes, and I feel like retention starts dropping if I do that. First overall pick, surprisingly, the consensus that I'm getting, even though it's been CJ Stroud for a while, is that the Panthers are finally leaning towards Bryce Young. So I'm going to pick Bryce Young at number 1. I think he's by far the best quarterback in this class, and I think they would be sorely mistaken to let Bryce Young pass. And it does seem like the clubhouse is starting to believe that Bryce Young is their quarterback. So good for them. There's also reports that the Texans are all in on Bryce Young, and that if Bryce Young is off the board, they're not as interested in a quarterback, which is very interesting. What do you do if you're the Texans in this spot and you don't need a and you're not looking to draft a quarterback? That is extremely interesting to play with. I'm going to give them Will Anderson. Now, I do believe that there's a strong indication that they could go CJ Stroud, but there's also a belief that their clubhouse is kind of split on it. From what I understand, half of the clubhouse wants CJ Stroud, and the other half want to just not focus on a quarterback if Bryce Young's not on the board. And it seems like that other half of the clubhouse is winning at the moment. So I'm going to give them Will Anderson. Like I said, anything could happen on draft night, and I think the top 5 picks, unlike most years, are not set in stone at all. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. And then if you're sitting at number 3 and you're the Cardinals, and you'd probably been looking at Will Anderson for so long, what do you do at number 3? Will Anderson's off the board. Obviously, you're not going to go quarterback here. But there's a lot of teams that want a quarterback really badly. Especially if you're starting a rebuild, you can get a lot of draft capital. So this is the one trade that I see like a strong indication of happening at this spot if this happens. So we are going to force a trade. Oh, this is not what I meant to click. My bad. We're going to force a trade between the Cardinals and the Raiders. I think the Raiders make sense for this. I toyed with the idea of just the Colts trading up 1. But if you're the Cardinals and you're looking at predominantly edge rushers, I think it makes sense to move back farther than 1 pick. And you can get more draft capital trading down more. So I actually don't think the Colts are in play. It could be the Falcons, but it seems like they really like Desmond Ridder. And I don't think trading from 3 to 11 is something the Cardinals want to do. The Seahawks could look up, but I think they like Geno a little too much. The only team that really makes sense for me is the Raiders. You have Jimmy G for the next 2 years. You can have a bridge quarterback in that time period. It's a weak class in general, so may as well take a risk on somebody, especially if CJ Stroud's available at 3. So we are going to force a trade. So they trade from 3 to 7. I'm just going to do that to get this trade to work. It got declined. One second. one second. Let me redo that. This thing's really fucky with accepting trades, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, there we go. So the Raiders trade up from 7 to 3 to take C.J. Stroud, which I think is a very realistic thing that could happen. The Raiders, I mean, they could use tackle and stick and pick at 7. But again, if C.J. Stroud's on the board, I think it's something that they would definitely look into. And the Cardinals, I think, will definitely be looking to trade down if Will Anderson's not available at 3. And then if you're at 4, what do you do? And I've fought myself with this pick a lot because I do not like the player. And if I'm the Colts here, I do think quarterback is probably the move. And if I'm the Colts, I'm picking Anthony Richardson every day of the week. But I'm going to give them Will Levis. There's a belief that Will Levis could fall, which I do a lot. I think he could probably end up at 11 to the Titans, maybe. But at the same time, as much as I love Anthony Richardson, I just don't know if he fits the scheme in Indianapolis too well. I don't know if Anthony Richardson is the type. I mean, think about it. When was the last time an Anthony Richardson type quarterback was in Indiana? I think Will Levis fits the mold of quarterback that the Colts have been using for a long time. And the belief is that they believe Will Levis is their guy. So I don't think it's a good pick for them, but I think it's probably what could definitely happen. And then if you're at 5, what do you do? For the Seahawks, I've picked edge rusher a lot. Tyree Wilson, consistently. I'm going to stray away from that because the Seahawks have a pick at 20, and there's a lot of edge rushers in this class that are very good if you want to go that route. And other than Tyree Smith, none of these other edge rushers, to me personally, set themselves apart. You can make a case for Myles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, and Nolan Smith as edge rusher 3, and they're all quality edge rushers. It's a good edge rusher class. So at 5, I'm going to take Jalen Carter and go D-tackle. They need D-line help desperately, D-tackle and edge. And you do not find another player of Jalen Carter's caliber in this class, period. Him and Will Anderson kind of stand alone as players 1 and 2, them and Bijan Robinson, but obviously that's not in play here. Maybe it could be like, it might not be a culture fit for the Seahawks, but also it's just hard to pass on at 5 to get a D-tackle of his caliber, especially when the drop-off of D-tackle is drastic past Jalen Carter. I like Kalijah Cansey a lot. I like Brian Brzee, too, to an extent. Mozzie Smith, Siaka Aka. Like, there's dudes, but you're not going to find a Jalen Carter at 20. So I do think at 5, just take the best player available at a position of need. Even if it might be a culture issue, just address that later. I think they'll be fine. And if you're at 6 and you're the Lions, what do you do? Just out of curiosity, what does it claim? I've always been corner, which it seems like they would agree with. I would even say that this is a sneaky Brian Branch spot. I think Brian Branch is a player that's going to go way sooner than people think, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to give them the best corner on the board. And for me personally, it's going to be Devin Witherspoon. I think you can make a case for Christian Gonzalez. Definitely. I just think that Devin Witherspoon is a little bit better in coverage than Christian Gonzalez is. So I'm going to go with him here at 6. But you can definitely make a case for who should be the first corner off the board. I wouldn't be shocked to see either of them go first, and they will probably be number 1 and 2, I'd imagine. But I'm going to go with Devin Witherspoon here, even though I've mocked Christian Gonzalez to them a lot. And then at 7, if you're the Cardinals, the board's played out favorably to get Tyree Wilson. Again, Tyree could definitely be gone at 5 to the Seahawks, I think, and even 6 to the Lions wouldn't be the most shocking thing I've ever seen. But he's not going to get past 7 if the Cardinals are here. There's just no chance. So the Cardinals can address edge with number 7 instead of taking Will Anderson at number 2, which I think that's an amazing pick. You trade from 3 to 7, still get a top-tier player in this class. I have him at 5, I think, on my big board. And then if you're the Falcons sitting at 8, I think it's extremely hard to pass on Anthony Richardson, who's been sliding a little bit, even if you are somebody that says that you're high on Desmond Ridder. I'm almost tempted to say even that somebody might trade up before this if Anthony Richardson's on the board. I think I've convinced myself to take him, though. Again, I like Anthony Richardson. I think he should have been gone at 4. I don't think the Seahawks give up on Geno. I don't think the Lions give up on Jimmy G. And obviously the Cardinals aren't taking a quarterback. But I do think the Falcons could definitely give up on Desmond Ridder if Anthony Richardson's on the board. And I think that's what I'm going to do here. I've convinced myself. This could be a Paris Johnson spot, but I just don't think that Anthony Richardson gets past this point. And I think the Falcons, I like the fit. I think it would be nice. Obviously, you have Kyle Pitts, who has prior experience with Anthony Richardson. Again, like, I'm so unsure of all of these picks. That's the thing. That's just how drafts happen. Especially because, I mean, I'd be so much more sure if Will Levis was still on the board because I'm not a big Will Levis guy. I like Anthony Richardson a lot, and it's going to take a team reluctantly taking a quarterback or trading down, or a team trading up to get him. And that's just kind of how the board is played to this point, which is played really favorably if you're the Bears, actually. I don't even think you think twice about this. Paris Johnson Jr. is on the board, and he probably shouldn't be on the board at 9. So I think that's something that they should definitely do. I've seen Bijan Robinson to the Eagles a lot. I don't really buy into that. I don't think that's something that they're looking to do, especially because don't they have a later pick? Yeah, they pick at 30. I mean, I don't think Bijan makes it to 30. But here at 10, what do you do if you're them? This could definitely be Christian Gonzalez. Like, without a doubt, this could be Christian Gonzalez. I like that a lot. I've mocked Peter Skoronski to them a lot. I kind of like that. They need interior O-line help. Not now, but eventually. Some pieces there. Peter Skoronski, is, even though he's listed at tackle, can be a plug-and-play guard at the next level. So I do like that a lot. You could go receiver. I just think, it's not... I think it's a little bit early for a receiver right here. Or do I give him Christian Gonzalez? Decisions, man. I am going to... I'm going to go with Peter Skoronski. I feel like I do it a lot, but I think he can just fill a guard spot immediately day one, and he's a good tackle. And then if you're the Titans sitting at 11, I think you could definitely look to take the first receiver off the board or even a dress corner, because Christian Gonzalez should not be around at 11. Ignore that. That was my alarm. Man, what do you do if you're them? Just out of curiosity again. Tackle center. I mean, tackle's a huge need. I'm a little bit reluctant to say that 3 tackles will go back to back to back. But I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Broderick Jones at 11. It might be a tad early for Broderick Jones, but with 2 tackles immediately coming off the board, that's kind of what I think they're going to be forced into. Especially with no other quarterback on the board. Now, if you're at 12 and you're the Texans and you took edge rusher... I mean, again, if you're the Texans, man, there's so much the Texans could look to improve that you could be in a position where you're just sitting there and taking the best player available. I've heard the Texans enjoy Brian Branch a lot, so it wouldn't be shocking to watch them do that. But I'm going to give them Christian Gonzalez. Best player on the board. You can afford to upgrade your corners. I'm not going to overthink it more than that. The Jets are a team that I've consistently marked Broderick Jones, actually, but with the way the board played out this time, obviously, he's already gone. I mean, I think they could even look to go receiver here. Obviously, quarterback's not in play. They're obviously not a team that's going to take Bijan. I mean, it's weird that Jackson Smith-Njigba is still on the board. That's really weird to me. I think the first receiver will fall before 13. I think I am going to give them an edge rusher here. But what edge rusher? I think Miles Murphy's hard to mock because apparently teams are all over the place on him. Nobody really seems to have a consensus on Miles Murphy. I'm going to give them Lucas Van Ness. I feel like he's probably going to be the next edge off the board. I actually have Nolan Smith and Miles Murphy ranked ahead of him. But again, I'm predicting what will happen, not what I think should happen. And I think Lucas Van Ness is probably the next edge off the board here. And if you're the Jets, it's a position that you can afford to upgrade. So, sitting at 14 with the Patriots, again, I mean, obviously wide receiver. I think they can address edge. They've talked about running back a lot. This could be a cornerback spot. I don't know. I feel like given the spot that they're in, they're going to go receiver just because all the receivers are still available. And even though my wide receiver 1 is Jordan Addison, but I do believe that Jackson Smith-Njigba is probably going to be the first wide receiver off the board. And we'll get that done 14 to the Patriots. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a fine player. I like him a lot. I don't know, like, I'm not big on the wide receiver class as a whole, but, I mean, he's really good in separation. Like, he may not be the fastest wide receiver, but he does everything else soundly. The only knock I really have on him really is his speed. But at 14, if you're the Patriots and you can get what you consider wide receiver 1, the first wide receiver off the board, I think you should do it here. And the Packers behind him, I think, will be sad that he's off the board. But also, I do think there's a possibility here for back-to-back receivers. I also think this could be a Miles Murphy spot for sure. I'm almost tempted to say that Brian Branch could be gone at 14 too. I know the Patriots really like Brian Branch. But I don't think that's what I'm going to do here. I think I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. They need wide receiver desperately. They need to get weapons. Jordan Addison's on the board at 15 when you probably thought he wasn't going to be. So back-to-back wide receivers at 14 and 15. At 16, I'm kind of torn because I do believe that the Commanders will look to address corner most likely, and there's still a lot of corners on the board. I do think Joey Porter Jr. probably goes before Deonte Banks. But also, how do you view Brian Branch? Because if you view Brian Branch as a corner, like a slot corner, maybe you take him here over Joey Porter Jr. to fill your cornerback needs. I don't think that happens, though. I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. at 16, which is devastating if you're the Steelers, probably. And then I'll keep Brian Branch on the board. Get a plug-and-play starting cornerback at 16. That's all you can really ask for. And from what I understand, being a Steelers fan, they are extremely high on Deonte Banks. I personally, if I'm them, I would love Brian Branch, but I don't think that's what they would do. I'm going to give them Deonte Banks. They like Deonte Banks a lot. They've met with him like 3 times, apparently, so that's probably something that they'll look to do. And then if you're the corner, or if you're the corner, if you're the Lions and you've already addressed cornerback, what do you do? Once again, let me check this just out of curiosity. Oh, well, hey. I mean, I'm kind of torn between 2 players here because you have all the tight ends available to you. What the fuck? Where'd all the tight ends go? Oh, okay. Whatever. I like Dalton Kincaid. I like Michael Meyer more. I like Darnell Washington a lot. Again, I think Darnell Washington is a guy that could go way sooner than people think he will. He could sneak into the first round, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. But you could go tight end here. You could also go safety. And I think I'm going to have them do that. I'm going to take Brian Branch off the board at 18. Get huge secondary help by doubling Devin Witherspoon and Brian Branch. You can play Brian Branch in that hybrid role. You can play Devin Witherspoon on the outside as your outside corner. I like that a lot. Get a ton of help on their secondary that I think desperately needs it. And then at 19, I think that this is probably where the slide stops for Bijan. I think Bijan could definitely go before this. The question is what team takes him. You know, he's player number 3 on my board. Like Bijan a lot. You could make a case for him being the best player in the class, honestly. And I don't think he gets past the Buccaneers, really. They have Leonard Fournette, but other than that, I think running back is wide open. Maybe you stray away from a running back if you're about to start a rebuild because of the longevity of running backs. I don't really know. There's a couple places that they could go here, but Bijan shouldn't be on the board at this point. I think that's probably where you stop the fall. And then if you're the Seahawks, the board's played out fantastically for you. Because I think you probably look to address edge, even though you already took 1 D lineman. This could be a sneaky corner spot, I think. Or even tight end. Like I would not be shocked to see the Seahawks go tight end. But I am going to go ahead and take an edge rusher off the board. And I'm going to take Miles Murphy. I do have Nolan Smith ahead of Miles Murphy. But again, teams are everywhere on Miles Murphy, and I do see him getting drafted before Nolan Smith does. And the Seahawks can get some huge help on the defensive line with Jalen Carter and Miles Murphy. And if you're the Chargers at 21, I mean, I'd imagine receiver is probably what I'm leaning towards here. Hold up. Where are they? I mean, you could address tackle, but, like, the board, I don't really think the board has played out extremely favorably. Cornerback, I mean, you have some first-round guys here, maybe. Cam Smith is probably the one that sticks out to me. Emmanuel Forbes could be a first-round guy. I mean, edge, obviously edge is definitely in play. Nolan Smith is a fantastic player. If you look to do that, that wouldn't be a bad idea at all. I don't think tackle is, I mean, I like Darnell Wright. Some people have Darnell Wright going really early. I've seen him as early as like 13. I don't think that happens, though. We're going to go wide receiver, and I'm actually going to give them Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is my wide receiver 4 behind Quentin. Actually, he might be wide receiver 5. I think I have Jalen Hyatt over him. But I'm predicting what I think will happen, and there's a belief that Quentin Johnston could fall to even like maybe the second round, and teams are a lot higher on Zay Flowers than Quentin Johnston. And if you're the Chargers looking to address the wide receiver position, you can take Zay Flowers and use him as a wide receiver 3 immediately, and I think that's something that they would look to do. The Ravens could also address wide receiver, even though they did just get Odell. What's the longevity on that, you know? Obviously, coming to the end of his career at some point, I'd imagine. Odell's fine. He's not a wide receiver 1 at this point in his career by any stretch. I think Odell's probably a decent wide receiver 2, which I think is still viewing Odell pretty highly from what some people believe of him. I definitely think this could be corner, sneaky tackle spot, but I think, just address wide receiver. And I'm going to give him Quentin Johnston, even though I think this could be a sneaky Jalen Hyatt spot. Again, there is a belief that he can fall. I'm not going to do it here, but it could happen. And sitting at 23 is the Vikings. I mean, there's some players that shouldn't be on the board. Brian Brzee falling a little bit. Both of the tight ends, I think, are falling a little bit. Nolan Smith is definitely falling a little bit. Darnell Wright, Kalijah Cansey. There's a lot of dudes. Corner and receiver. I know corner's like always a need for the Vikings. And wide receiver has been. They desperately need a wide receiver 3, but I just don't think you get it here. You could address corner and take Cam Smith. You could also, I think that this is a real spot to trade down, but who do you trade down with? Actually, that's not a bad idea, I think. I'm going to have the Vikings actually trade down a couple picks, I think. Again, this is new to me. I didn't do this originally, but I think it does make sense. They're not going to trade down drastically or anything. Let's see, where's Minnesota? I'm sorry, guys, I'm losing my mind currently. So take Minnesota, take the Bills. I'm going to have the Bills trade up. So 23 to 27. I don't know. 23. Oh, yeah, no, that'll go through, right? Yeah, all right. I'm not going to work the logistics of it. And I think the Bills trade up to address the interior offensive line. The Jaguars have consistently been mocked interior offensive line. It's a sneaky pick for both the Giants and Cowboys. So I think jumping those 3 teams is huge, especially when there is a plug-and-play guard immediately in Osiris Torrance. I've had them mocked Osiris Torrance before, but I've also had the Jaguars take him. And I think if you can trade up from 27 to 23, you probably don't need to, honestly give up that much either. I think that's something that you'd look to do and take Osiris Torrance, who could be an immediate starter on the offensive line for the Bills. I think that's a huge play. And then if you're the Jaguars, what do you do? Actually, it's pretty easy. I mean, it'd be much harder to make this pick if Osiris Torrance was on the board. I think that this is where a tight end is finally taken, and I'm going to give him Michael Mayer. A lot of people say that Dalton Kincaid will be the first tight end on the board. I'm much higher on Michael Mayer than Dalton Kincaid, even though I like both of them. So top tight end on the board gone at 24, which brings us to 25. Obviously, tight end is no longer in play for the Giants. This could be Jalen Hyatt. I just don't really think the board is played out in a way that would make sense for that to happen. Where is New York? Corner. I mean, corner, you could address corner here. Yeah. If you're the Giants, really, I mean, other than maybe taking Cam Smith here, maybe best player available isn't a bad idea, and somebody like Nolan Smith. You can never have too many edge rushers. I mean, really, it's just who do you think is best player available, Nolan Smith or Cam Smith? I'm going to give him Cam Smith. It's a bigger position of need, and if you view him closely to Nolan Smith, I think that's a smart pick. At 26, if you're the Cowboys, I mean, the board's played out pretty favorably. There's not too many guys that I think have fallen in this one. Darnell Wright will probably be gone in real life by this time. I think so will Dalton Kincaid and Nolan Smith. But that's really it. Kalijah Cansey might be gone, but there's no, like, huge shocking falls or anything, at least to me. Cowboys at 26. I mean, it's hard to predict what the Cowboys ever decide to pick, really. They're kind of all over the place. Oh, no. Yeah, no. Actually, that makes perfect sense. Never mind. A player that I've mocked them consistently, and I think I'll continue to do here, is Brian Brzee. I don't know what about Brian Brzee just speaks like Cowboys pick to me, but it really does, and they could afford to address the D tackle position. It could be a receiver, but again, I think Jalen Hyatt could be a first-round pick, but outside of that, there's not really anything. The Vikings have needs, but from my understanding, they're nothing that, like, is massive to address right now, right? Cornerback, I mean, maybe Emmanuel Forbes. Receiver, again, maybe Jalen Hyatt. I mean, you could take the top linebacker off the board, maybe. I haven't mocked linebackers off the board in a while. I mean, I like all three of these guys, but I don't know if they're first-round caliber guys, you know? You could afford to trade back again, but you would need a team that's willing to trade up. Yeah, actually, I think, as weird as it is, I think the Vikings are... I'm going to pick a double trade. Again, who knows what happens on draft night, but I think in this scenario they're going to trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to trade 27 for 32. And I'm not going to work the logistics of it. Again, there are multiple teams here that I think the Steelers could be looking to jump. The Steelers need tackle, the Bengals could take a tackle, and the Chiefs could also take a tackle. So if you're the Steelers being able to trade up from 32 to 27, at least to me personally, that makes sense. And then they could look to address tackle. I'm going to give them Darnell Wright. I'm not a huge Darnell Wright guy, but I think it just like is what would happen in this situation. I like Daewon Jones a lot more than Darnell Wright. Other than that, I think he's probably... I like Matthew Bergeron a lot. I think I have him higher than Darnell Wright. But, I mean, at 27, again, Darnell Wright's a guy that I've seen as early as... I think it was 13 to the Jets, even. Like, I've seen him go off the board, like, really early. And then if you're the Bengals and you were looking to take tackle, I mean, you still could, I think... I don't think they do that anymore, though. I'm going to give him an edge since Nolan Smith has decided to fall this far. Again, I don't think he will in real life. It's hard for me to imagine a world where he does. If you're the Saints, I'm thinking D-tackle. I don't think I'm going to get persuade on that. Edge, receiver, I mean, this could be tight end. 100% this could be a tight end. This could be Dalton Kincaid. But again, I think their biggest need is interior defensive line, and I like Kalijah Cansey a lot, so we're going to go with that. Dalton Kincaid has fallen. Tight ends fall pretty regularly, though. I think he's the only player on the board, really, that I'm like, he really shouldn't be here at this point. He's like the one guy that I think should definitely be a first-rounder. So we'll see. At pick 30, if you're the Eagles, what do? I think I had him take corner, right? Or did they get tackle? They took tackle. So, I mean, you might be chokeholded into taking corner here. Or, I mean, they took interior, technically, because he's going to move. I think you're kind of chokeholded into taking corner at this spot. And again, it's not a bad thing. Like, there's a lot of guys here that are worth a first-round pick. Emmanuel Forbes could be a first-rounder. Khalil Ringo's a sneaky first-rounder. Julius Brents is a guy that I think could go. Tyree Stevenson, it really wouldn't be a shock either. I like Clark Phillips a lot. I'm going to take Emmanuel Forbes, though. I feel like that's the most likely scenario to be a first-round corner out of all of these guys. Other than maybe Khalil Ringo, again, he's another guy that teams are all over the place on. If you're the Chiefs, I mean, you could take receiver, but I'm kind of leaning tackle. Yeah. This could be a sneaky Jalen Hyatt spot. There's a lot of those, but I don't think it will be. I'm going to address tackle. Even though I like DeJuan Jones a lot. I think I'm actually going to do that. We're going to take DeJuan Jones instead of Anton Harrison. Yeah. And then at 32, I'm going to pick number 32, even though it's technically the second round. They've traded back twice. I'd assume trading back twice you get assets, I would hope. They could address safety. I'm a big Antonio Johnson guy. I don't think he is the pick here, though. You could take the top linebacker in the class, whoever you view that as. My linebacker one's Drew Sanders, but all three of these guys are really close, really. Or you could take receiver, which I think is actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Jalen Hyatt off the board. I've talked about him a lot. He's just a huge speed guy to pair with Justin Jefferson. Obviously, Adam Thielen is not going to be there forever. You need a wide receiver 3 now that you can turn into a wide receiver 2 pretty soon, and I think that could be Jalen Hyatt, just a huge speed separation guy that you can just plug and play in the slot immediately. So I like that a lot. Again, I talked about it a lot. This is merely a prediction. There is so much that could happen. 3 trades in this one, because I had the Raiders move up, and then I had, what was the other one? I'm blanking. I had the Vikings move down twice, but I'm sorry, guys. I'm actually just losing my fucking mind, I think. Oh, no. I had the Vikings trade with the Bills and then trade again with the Steelers. That's what happened. I do think, though, there'll be a ton of trades on draft night. It's just kind of hard to predict who and when. Because, again, it's kind of a weak class, so if a team has like one player on the board that they really like and they really want to get him, they'll trade up. But if another team, maybe their player that they really liked or the players that they really liked are all off the board, so they'll just trade down. So I do think that there will be a ton of trades on draft night. It's just really hard to predict who's high on who. Again, there's a ton of it's merely a prediction, and there's a ton of guys that could be first round picks. So I'm just going to go over them real quick. Hendon Hooker is a guy that I've seen people put in the first round before. I don't know if he will be. I don't think he should be, but it wouldn't be overly shocking to see Hendon Hooker go. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that's definitely worth a first-round pick and very well could be. I think the Vikings could stick and pick at 27 if they trade down and take him. The Bills could take him. Even the Eagles could take him. It wouldn't shock me. He's a guy that could definitely go in round 1. Josh Downs, maybe. I don't really think so, though. A.T. Perry is a guy that could be a sneaky first rounder. Tyler Scott. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid is the one player that really dropped. I think he definitely will be a first rounder. It just didn't happen in this simulation. Darnell Washington is a guy that I think is worth a first round pick, and he will go a lot sooner than people think he will. I'm calling it now. He will. He has big size and big speed, and that is all you need to get drafted in the NFL sometimes. I like Darnell Washington a lot, but tackle-wise, Anton Harrison's a guy that definitely could be a first-round draft pick. Steve Avila, he's a guy that's played all 5 offensive line positions. He could definitely go in the first round. I've seen John Michael Schmidt and Joe Tipman in the first round, and neither of that would shock me if somebody's looking to go center in the first in the latter half. Defensively, Mozzie Smith is a guy that I've put in the first round before, and I think it's definitely a possibility, but it would take some team taking Kalijah Cansey off the board first, I think, and Brian Brzee. So I don't know if that happens. Will McDonald's a guy that could definitely be a first-round pick. I've seen Keon White put in the first round consistently. Isaiah Foskey as well. Trenton Simpson, Drew Sanders, all three of these linebackers could definitely be a first-round pick in the later half if somebody just wants to address linebacker. Khalif Ringo could definitely, like I said, Julius Brents could be. I don't think any of these safeties are really a threat to go in the first round. I like Jamie Robinson a lot, but I just don't think any of these other guys will end up first-round picks. But that's how my board is played out. Obviously, it'll be completely wrong come draft night. Played around with some scenarios that might not happen, like Anthony Richardson over, or Will Levis over Anthony Richardson for the Colts. Texans pass on C.J. Stroud. Panthers take Bryce Young. It's just fun to play around with all these what-if scenarios of what if this team is in this position, even though they'll be in a completely different situation come draft night probably. I do think that there's a lot of variability in this class, and I think it'll be a wild first-round draft. I really do. I think like a lot of players are going to go that you're not even thinking of right now. But anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Oh shit, didn't mean to jump scare you like that. Expect another mock draft probably the day before the draft, and I might come out with some more draft content before that. I'm not really too sure yet. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever I make. Peace.